Welcome to our Immigration Briefing program. Today, we dive into the struggles faced by Pacific Islanders applying for the new Australian visa, with reports of significant delays and confusion leaving many feeling anxious about their future. Despite the hope for a new life, only a tiny fraction of applicants have received their visas, prompting calls for better communication and support from officials. Next, we turn our attention to Japan, where a shocking decline in passport ownership has raised concerns about the country's global competitiveness. With only 17.5% of citizens holding passports, this inward-looking trend could hinder Japan's youth and their opportunities abroad. Suggestions for free passports for young adults have emerged, but political action remains muted amidst pressing fiscal concerns. Finally, we explore the legal drama surrounding billionaire Richard White, who faces serious accusations from Caroline Heidemann. She claims that their relationship was built on financial dependency and coercion, while White maintains it was consensual. As Heidemann navigates her legal battle in Australia, the stakes are high, making this a story to watch closely. Please stay tuned for detailed coverage. Australian Broadcasting Corporation reports on the struggles faced by Pacific Islanders seeking the Pacific Engagement Visa, PEV, to gain permanent residency in Australia. Sean, a resident of Port Moresby, invested everything into his application, hoping for a fresh start for his family after a tragic loss. However, he and other applicants are disheartened by the lengthy and confusing process, with only a small percentage of visas granted thus far. Many have faced job offer withdrawals due to delays, and the support service meant to assist them has been criticized for its inefficiency. The emotional toll of the situation is palpable, as individuals like Sally express their fears of wasted time and resources. Nikkei Asia highlights Japan's alarming decline in passport ownership, revealing that only 17.5% of Japanese citizens held passports at the end of 2024, a significant drop from 27% in 2005. This trend raises concerns about Japan's global competitiveness and reflects a broader issue of an inward-looking attitude among its citizens. While more Japanese nationals are living abroad, many choose to leave due to limited opportunities at home. With political debates failing to address these pressing issues, the youth's future appears bleak, and there is a growing need for a hopeful vision to combat the rise of populism stemming from frustration and misinformation. The Sydney Morning Herald covers the legal battle faced by Caroline Heidemann, who accuses billionaire executive Richard White of exploiting her for a visa and financial support in exchange for a sexual relationship. Heidemann has secured a temporary visa through Anti-Slavery Australia to pursue her claims in court, alleging serious violations of the Fair Work Act. Despite White's denial of any wrongdoing, the situation has escalated with new allegations emerging. Heidemann's experience sheds light on the complexities of power dynamics and dependency in professional relationships, as she navigates the legal system while confronting the personal implications of her claims. The Independent reports that the Trump administration's immigration crackdown has led to a significant increase in the number of detainees held in facilities across the United States, particularly in southern states like Texas and Louisiana. As of February 8, 43,759 individuals are being held in ICE detention centers, with over half lacking any criminal records. The data reveals that Texas alone accounts for 12,259 detainees, followed closely by Louisiana and California. Many detainees face prolonged waiting periods for their cases to be processed, often in facilities that are far removed from urban centers, complicating access to legal representation and communication with family. Advocacy groups have raised concerns about the conditions within these detention centers, citing reports of abuse and inadequate treatment, while the Trump administration pushes for even greater detention capacity. The Associated Press highlights a dramatic rescue operation off the coast of Tunisia, where authorities saved 64 migrants from a capsized boat. These individuals, attempting to make an illegal crossing to Europe, were found after their vessel ran out of fuel. The migrants were transported to the port of Cheba for further investigation, with initial reports suggesting they may have departed from Libya. The ongoing crisis in the Mediterranean has seen thousands of migrants risking their lives to reach Europe, with the UN estimating that over 100 individuals have died or gone missing in the region since the beginning of 2025. This incident underscores the perilous nature of migration in search of better opportunities. The Sydney Morning Herald sheds light on the stagnation of productivity in Australia, attributing the issue to a lack of effort from businesses rather than government shortcomings. For over a decade, productivity improvements have been minimal, with economists arguing that businesses have failed to invest in the necessary capital to enhance efficiency. While immigration is often touted as a driver of economic growth, the article warns that without corresponding investments in infrastructure and equipment, the influx of workers can lead to a decline in living standards. Recent analyses from the Reserve Bank and the Productivity Commission emphasize the need for businesses to innovate and invest in their operations to reverse the trend of poor productivity performance. CNN reports on the Trump administration's aggressive immigration policies that could lead to significant labor shortages and economic downturns in the United States. Since taking office, Trump has focused on curbing both illegal and legal immigration, shutting down asylum processes and restricting refugee flights. Experts warn that these actions could exacerbate workforce shortages in critical sectors like healthcare, agriculture, and construction, where immigrant labor is essential. As the U.S. population ages and birth rates decline, the need for immigrant workers becomes even more pressing. The American Immigration Council highlights that immigrants currently contribute $1.7 trillion in spending power, and a continued crackdown could hinder economic growth, potentially dragging GDP growth below 2% by 2026. The Guardian outlines how the Trump administration is pressuring Central American countries to act as a dumping ground for immigrants the U.S. cannot deport. By leveraging threats and imposing conditions, the administration is forcing these nations into agreements that could violate the rights of many migrants. The article reveals that immigrants from countries like Afghanistan and Iran are being deported to Panama and Costa Rica, where they face uncertain futures and limited access to legal counsel. This shift in immigration policy reflects a broader strategy to outsource the asylum process, with Central American countries becoming staging grounds for migrants who cannot be sent back to their home nations. The potential for increased deportations raises concerns over human rights and legal protections for these vulnerable populations. South China Morning Post discusses U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance's recent remarks criticizing European nations for their handling of populist sentiments. Vance's speech resonated with many in Europe, especially as countries like Portugal see a rise in far-right political parties. The article emphasizes the need for European governments to engage with the views of all constituents, particularly in light of pressing issues like inflation and economic challenges. It suggests that dismissing a significant portion of the electorate could further fuel extremist sentiments. While Europe grapples with integration issues and social cohesion amid rising immigration, Vance's comments invite a reflective dialogue on how to effectively address the complexities of migration while upholding liberal values. The Toronto Star reports on a civil rights lawsuit filed by attorneys aiming to prevent the Trump administration from transferring 10 migrants to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, amidst allegations of mistreatment. The lawsuit, supported by the American Civil Liberties Union, includes harrowing testimonies from former detainees who described their experiences in the prison as a living hell. Detainees have reported being confined in small, windowless cells with constant lighting, inadequate food, and medical care, leading to severe mental distress, including suicide attempts. One former detainee recounted being tortured by Venezuelan officials before fleeing to the U.S., highlighting the dire circumstances faced by these migrants. In a separate legal action reported by the New York Times, a group of prominent lawyers has filed a lawsuit against Panama concerning the detention of migrants deported from the United States. The lawsuit claims that the Iranian Christian converts and other migrants are being held unlawfully in a camp under conditions that violate their rights to asylum and international law. Despite the Panamanian government's assertion that the migrants are not detained by them, the camp remains heavily guarded and controlled by Panamanian authorities. This legal challenge threatens to disrupt President Trump's policy of exporting migrants to Central American countries, raising significant questions about human rights and international obligations. According to CBC, Liberal leadership candidate Mark Carney has initiated the process to renounce his citizenship in both the United Kingdom and Ireland, aiming to hold solely Canadian citizenship while running for Prime Minister. At a campaign event, he emphasized the importance of singular citizenship for a Prime Minister and acknowledged the prevalence of multiple citizenships among members of the House of Commons. His announcement comes as he vies for leadership within the Liberal Party, which is currently selecting a new leader following Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's decision to step down. Carney's move has sparked discussions about citizenship and political accountability in Canada, especially in light of recent federal election dynamics. Associated Press reports that civil rights attorneys have filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration in an effort to block the transfer of 10 migrants from the U.S. to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. This legal action marks the second challenge in less than a month concerning plans to detain up to 30,000 immigrants at the naval base, a facility that has historically been used for high-profile detainees linked to terrorism. The lawsuit, supported by the American Civil Liberties Union, claims that the migrants, who originate from countries such as Afghanistan and Venezuela, do not pose a high risk and that their transfer violates their constitutional rights. The attorneys argue that the transfers are arbitrary and illegal, as federal immigration law prohibits such actions for non-Cuban migrants, and they are seeking to prevent further transfers to what they describe as inhumane conditions. Associated Press also highlights that the Pentagon is deploying an additional 3,000 active duty troops to the US-Mexico border as part of President Trump's ongoing efforts to curb illegal immigration. This deployment will bolster the existing military presence, which includes about 9,200 troops already stationed along the nearly 2,000-mile border. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has emphasized the importance of these troops in reinforcing border security operations, aiming to protect the territorial integrity of the United States. The military's involvement in border security has been a consistent strategy since the 1990s, as authorities seek to address challenges related to migration and drug trafficking. New York Times reports on the Honduran government's decision to initiate the extradition process for Eswin Mejia, an undocumented immigrant accused of killing Sarah Root, a young Iowa woman, in a drunk driving incident in 2016. This case gained significant attention during Trump's presidential campaign, and the extradition request reflects the willingness of Latin American countries to cooperate with the U.S. under the current administration. Mejia was arrested in Honduras after fleeing the U.S. following his release on bond. The Honduran Supreme Court has ordered his arrest, and the decision regarding extradition will be determined by a judge. This case is one of many extradition requests received by the Honduran government since President Xiomara Castro took office, signifying a shift towards greater collaboration with U.S. authorities. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.
Turn on the TV screen, see the world unseen. China's on the news tonight, history in the spotlight. Scroll through my phone again, find out where to begin. Stories from the east to west, learning from the very best. News in China every day, learning in a fun new way. From the cities to the farms, feel the heartbeat, feel the charm. Ancient tales in modern times, mountains high and river rise. Culture rich in every town, golden driving never down. Every headline a new friend, from beginning to the end, connecting hearts through every word. China's story always first. News in China every day, learning a fun new way. From the cities to the farms, feel the heartbeat, feel the charm. Every headline a new friend, from beginning to the end, connecting hearts through every word. China's story